Really heartened to be sitting next to Mike because we are beginning where he began 12 years ago with a couple of hundred members and a bit of a dream. I'm a little disheartened to hear it takes 12 years to get out of debt. The executives meeting back in Melbourne tonight, and I probably need to give them a call and get them to revise the 12-month plan. So I'm in the really privileged position of getting to talk to you about what it looks like to build a militant union from the very beginning. And I think I'm among friends. So the first thing I'm going to say won't be controversial to you, but I can tell you it's controversial among the wider union movement across the country. And that is, we unashamedly have started a union that has the same coverage as another union with a 100-year history in this country. And that is not usually a matter that draws cheers. Competitive unionism is a dirty phrase in Australia, but the first thing I want to talk to you all about, and it's nice to be able to do it in a room of supporters, it hasn't happened much for us in the last few months, is that the first principle we start with is that there comes a time when you can no longer accept the entrenched power structures, including in our own movement. And for us, that meant a conversation after the Coles case when we had generated a huge amount of momentum, when we actually had to grapple with the reality of, for example, the 60-year-old cleaner in Benalla who earned 60% less than the minimum award rates. And when you are confronted with 75% of our workforce who not only earn lower than the award minimum, which is not a decent and fair standard of living, it is an absolute rock bottom minimum, and who don't even understand that that right has been taken away from them, when you are confronted with a union that has $120 million in the bank and an exploited membership of 135,000, when you are confronted with young women at Baker's Delight who earn 60% less than the minimum. These are 14, 15 and 16-year-old women. This is their first experience of work. This is their first experience of unionism. And they earn less than the very basic minimum wage we say you should in this country. When you have Josh Cullinan, my very dear comrade, who has spent the last 25 years trying to achieve reform internally in the SDA and hasn't succeeded because of entrenched rules about power and money, you have to say there comes a time when you have to stand up and say, now is the time that we no longer accept that this is a union that is a union. Yeah. Thank you, friends. Thank you. And so we made the really difficult decision that we would unashamedly go out there to try and take the membership of another union. But it wasn't just about taking their membership. We got together a group of really committed activists, and we start with this principle. You have to begin as you mean to continue. And what I mean by that is we are not a small group of people who are looking to the future about what a union might look like. From the very beginning, we are membership-led, we are democratic, and we are committed to class struggle. And that is a principle that has to start from the very, very beginning. So our rules, our foundations, our election structure, our financial transparency, our delegate structure, our goals, our aims, our projects are driven by the members. And we made a very conscious decision from the beginning that we couldn't be a small group of folks, I've never worked in retail or fast food, in a lawyer's office with a plan for the future. We had to embed the principles that we want to see this union operate under from the very beginning, and then direct everything we did to ensuring that those values and those principles were upheld from the very, very beginning. So that for everybody that joins our organisation, we can say to them, we are socialists, we are unionists, we are democratic, and you will determine your own future as a unionist with us. That was the second really important thing we did. The third thing, which is why I'm so grateful to have been invited along tonight, is that when a union starts out in the way that we are starting out, you must have, we decided, solidarity from the very, very beginning. Solidarity isn't something that should come years from now when we've got a broader structure, and it's not something we should think about when we get a moment. We should make sure that solidarity with the broader union movement and anyone committed to class struggle is embedded with us from the beginning. So we're here, we're talking to you, we're talking to the International Federations of Retail and Fast Food Workers Unions. We are in every community group, every organisation, every Trades and Labour Council that will have us. Thank you, Geelong. We are anywhere that any committed group of unionists or left-wing activists is prepared to have us, as a sign of our commitment that we have solidarity with the movement from the very start and from the beginning, and embedded into everything that we do as a union. The fourth, I should say, thing that we are really committed to is a conversation that Mike has been talking about, which is class struggle. I like to call this the go where the money isn't rule. In everything that we've done so far, we have had pushback from the broader union movement. And I should pause to note there are a great many unionists in Victoria that are helping us without making it public, and I understand there's a lot of reasons why that might have to happen. But we are getting entrenched pushback from a number of organisations, the ALP is one of them, and a number of really large unions. And one of the things we are faced with in that conversation is the discussion about money, and the money that's available in the union movement, but more particularly the money that the union movement funnels into the ALP for its political purposes. And we have made very clear from the very beginning that we are not interested in having a conversation with anybody who wants to talk to us about the flow of money. Our workers, our members, are some of the poorest workers in this country. They have some of the lowest wages, and on top of that, they have union negotiated agreements that undercut their very basic rights. And so our rule is we're going where the money isn't. We're going to the workers who are having money stripped away from them, penalty rates stripped away from them, overtime, weekend penalties, casual rates, junior rates. That is where our focus will be. If there is a monetary problem flowing between unions and the ALP, that is as a consequence of the exploitation of this group of workers, and we won't have any part of it. So we accept that what we are doing is potentially a threat to those money channels, but our rule is we'll go where the money isn't, and that's where our members are. That's point 4. Point 5, we call it activism, not cliptivism. Now, I got banned in my first week from tweeting. Apparently I was no good at it. And that's okay. Facebook, Twitter, all those things, they're a fantastic mechanism to communicate with people and to reach out and to have networks. They don't activate people. The RAFWU activists, and they are an extraordinary group of, we've got almost 500 volunteers who are giving up their weeknights and weekends to go out in teams of 4 to Coles stores and Woolies stores and Aldi stores and Baker's Delights with our flyers, and to talk to young workers about the message about penalty rates, about exploitation, about enterprise agreements. We go into these stores until we get thrown out. Half of the time the store security throws us out, the other half of the time the SDA delegate throws us out. But this is all about not simply getting outcomes for people, but organising young workers into being activated, educated unionists. And Mike touched on this as well. I'm a barrister. What I want to do every time I see a case of exploitation is go to court. That gets an outcome, and it's a flash in a pan and it's gone. We saw what happened with Grilled. There was a huge campaign about that. Those workers are back on a substandard agreement because nobody built union understanding, nobody built union power, nobody educated young workers about what it means to be a unionist. And so we're doing it the long way and what we think to be the right way. We go into stores, we get people's details, we call them, we go to their homes, we meet their parents, we take them out for coffee, we talk about what it means to be a unionist. And that is how we're going to build our union. It will take time, it will take effort, it's taking an extraordinary body of volunteers, but everything we do is directed to activating and educating the working class about what it means to be a unionist and what collective action can achieve. So they're the 5 things I wanted to say to you about what it's like to be at the very beginning of a militant union journey. We look to the extraordinary experience of Unite to say that it can be done, and then we look down the track to somebody like Troy, who is leading a really well-established militant union that has 100 years of history, and we hope that 100 years from now, when this conference is held again, that we can say that we have that sort of proud history that a union like the ETU does.